The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for 3 days before I worked up the courage to open it. Inside was the name and photograph of the man I would marry in exactly 4 weeks. A man I had never met, never spoken to, never even seen before. His name was Ethan Miller, 34, financial analyst from Boston. He had kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and a tentative smile that didn't quite reach them. 6 months earlier, I wouldn't have believed you if you'd told me I'd be getting married to a complete stranger. But that was before my life had fallen apart in ways I couldn't have imagined. "You're absolutely insane, Olivia," my sister Jen said when I told her what I was doing. "I know you've been through hell, but this is not the answer." Maybe she was right. Maybe signing up for Modern Matrimony, a legally binding social experiment where professionals pair complete strangers for marriage, was a desperate act of someone who had lost her way. But after what happened with Daniel, nothing in my life made sense anymore anyway. Daniel and I had been together for 7 years. We had the downtown apartment, the weekend brunch routine, the shared Netflix account, and the future all planned out. Until the day I came home early from a business trip to find him packing his things. "I can't do this anymore," he said, not even looking surprised to see me, like he'd been rehearsing this moment. I've been pretending for too long. The woman he'd been seeing for the past year was pregnant. They were moving to Chicago to start their real life together. Just like that, the carefully constructed reality I thought was mine crumbled into nothing. After Daniel left, I found myself questioning everything. Had any of it been real? How could I have been so blindly confident in something that was essentially an illusion? I started to wonder if genuine connection was even possible when we're all just showing each other careful edits of who we really are. That's when I saw the advertisement for Modern Matrimony. Stop dating, start with commitment. Let science find your perfect match. Their premise was revolutionary and controversial. Their team of psychologists, relationship counselors, and data scientists claimed a success rate 3 times higher than traditional marriage. Their theory? Dating is fundamentally flawed. People choose based on surface-level attraction and shared interests, which have almost no bearing on long-term compatibility. What if experts who truly understood the mechanics of successful partnerships made the choice instead? What if you skipped the dating dance entirely and started with total commitment? I applied on a wine-fueled night when the silence in my apartment felt suffocating. I never expected to be accepted. The screening process was rigorous: psychological evaluations, extensive interviews, background checks. But 3 months later, I received notification that they had found my match. And now here I was, staring at Ethan Miller's face, wondering what madness had possessed me to agree to this. According to the materials, he and I were a 98.7% match on the factors that actually predicted marital success: conflict resolution styles, financial values, views on family, emotional intelligence, and dozens of other data points I would never have thought to evaluate on a first date. The wedding would be small but real. The marriage license would be authentic. We would live together for 1 year, working with counselors throughout. After that, we could choose to stay married or file for divorce with no questions asked. My phone buzzed with a text from the program coordinator. "Olivia, this is your final opportunity to withdraw. Please confirm your continued participation by 5 p.m. today." My finger hovered over the screen. I looked at Ethan's photo again. Behind his glasses, his eyes seemed to be asking the same question I was. Are we really doing this? I took a deep breath and typed, "Confirmed." The wedding venue was a converted industrial space in a trendy neighborhood, with exposed brick walls and strings of twinkling lights hanging from steel beams. I stood in a small anteroom, wearing a simple ivory dress, my hands trembling as the coordinator went through final instructions. "Remember, you'll meet for the first time at the altar. No communication beforehand. That's crucial to the integrity of the experiment," she explained, straightening my necklace. "The ceremony is brief. Afterwards, you'll have a private dinner to begin getting acquainted before leaving for your new apartment. Our new apartment. The program had arranged everything, a neutral space neither of us had seen before, furnished and ready for our bizarre honeymoon period. I nodded mechanically, wondering for the 100th time if I should run while I still could. Olivia. The coordinator tilted her head. Second thoughts? About 1 million of them, I admitted. She smiled sympathetically. That's normal. But remember why you're here. Remember what you told us in your interviews about wanting something real, something built on substance rather than illusion. The music started, not the traditional wedding march, but a soft instrumental piece we'd both apparently selected from options provided. This tiny coincidence gave me an odd comfort as I took my first steps toward the ceremony space. The guests were few, just my sister Jen, my best friend Rachel, and a handful of others who'd reluctantly supported my decision. On Ethan's side sat an older couple who must be his parents, looking simultaneously concerned and hopeful, plus 3 men around Ethan's age who kept exchanging glances. And then I saw him, standing at the altar. Taller than his photo suggested, shoulders slightly hunched as if apologizing for taking up space. When our eyes met, I saw a flash of something. Relief? Terror? Before he attempted a reassuring smile. I returned it, surprised to find it wasn't entirely forced. The ceremony passed in a blur. We exchanged simple vows written by the program, vows that emphasized commitment to the process rather than eternal love. When the officiant pronounced us husband and wife, Ethan leaned in for an awkward, brief kiss that somehow managed to be both clinical and oddly intimate. "Hi," he whispered, as we turned to face our bewildered guests. "I'm Ethan." "Olivia," I replied, fighting a nervous laugh at the absurdity of introducing myself to my husband. Dinner was set in a private dining room. After obligatory congratulations from our guests, we finally sat alone at a small table, 2 strangers bound by legal document and matching wedding bands. "So," Ethan cleared his throat, adjusting his glasses, "this is unusual." I appreciated the understatement. "Definitely not how I imagined getting married." "How did you imagine it?" he asked, genuinely curious. The question caught me off guard. I'd spent so much time thinking about the mechanics of this arrangement that I'd avoided dwelling on what I was giving up. The proposal story I'd never have. The knowledge that the man across from me had chosen me above all others. "I'm not sure anymore," I answered honestly. My previous relationship made me question everything I thought I wanted. That's part of why I'm here. "You?" Ethan took a sip of wine before answering. "I was engaged once. Hannah. She said I was too predictable, too safe." He gave a self-deprecating smile. "After that, I tried being less predictable. Dating apps, setups from friends. I was terrible at all of it." Then a colleague mentioned this program. As we talked, I began noticing things about Ethan. The way he listened intently, never interrupting. How he answered questions thoughtfully rather than filling silence with nervous chatter. The slight tremor in his hand that matched my own internal shakiness. By the time we reached our new apartment, a modern 2-bedroom with views of the river, something had shifted. The terrifying stranger was becoming a person with a history and motivations I could begin to understand. "I requested the 2 bedrooms, he said as we stood awkwardly in the living room. "I thought we should have our own spaces, at least until—" "Thank you," I said, genuinely grateful. That was thoughtful. We chose our rooms and retreated to unpack. As I hung my clothes in the closet, I noticed a small envelope on the pillow. Inside was a note from the program. Week 1 assignment. Share 3 meaningful personal stories from your childhood before the end of the week. I sat on the edge of the bed listening to the sounds of Ethan moving around in the next room. My husband. A stranger with kind eyes who had requested separate bedrooms and was now just a wall away, probably feeling every bit as lost as I was. I pulled out my phone and texted Jen. "Made it through the wedding. He seems nice." she replied immediately. Nice. You married him, Liv. He better be more than nice. But as I prepared for my first night as a married woman, alone in my separate bedroom, I realized that nice was actually a pretty good start. Daniel had been exciting, spontaneous, charming, and ultimately devastating. Maybe nice had more potential than I'd ever given it credit for. That first week passed in a strange dance of politeness and cautious discovery. Each morning, I'd emerge from my room to find Ethan already in the kitchen, 2 mugs of coffee prepared. We'd sit at the breakfast bar making careful conversation, like extremely courteous roommates who happened to be legally bound to each other. By Friday, we'd completed our first assignment. I learned about the summer Ethan broke his arm falling from a treehouse, but didn't tell anyone for hours because he was afraid of ruining his family's picnic. He learned about my childhood pet turtle that I believed was communicating with me through blinking patterns. Small stories, but they began painting pictures of who we were beneath the awkwardness. This is so backwards, I said one evening as we washed dishes side by side. Most people spend months, years getting to know each other before making this commitment. We're doing everything in reverse. Ethan handed me a plate to dry. Maybe that's not such a bad thing. We've already made the hardest decision. Now we just have to figure out if we made the right one. Our weekly sessions with Dr. Porter, the program's relationship counselor, became surprisingly valuable. Unlike typical marriage counseling, we weren't there to fix problems, but to build a foundation before problems appeared. She gave us structured exercises to work through difficult conversations that most couples avoid until they become landmines. What are your non-negotiables? She asked during our second session. Dishonesty, I said immediately, thinking of Daniel. I can work through almost anything except lies. Ethan nodded. Financial infidelity. My parents' marriage fell apart because my dad kept hiding massive debts. The secrecy was worse than the money problems. Week by week, the separate bedrooms began to feel less necessary and more like a barrier. The night Ethan had food poisoning, I sat on the bathroom floor with him until 3 a.m., holding a cold washcloth to his forehead. When I had a panic attack after a particularly stressful work presentation, he knew exactly how to talk me through it, patient and steady. 3 months in, my sister finally admitted she might have been wrong. He's actually perfect for you, Jen said as we had lunch together. The way he balances your impulsiveness with that thoughtful caution of his. How did those scientists know? I couldn't explain it myself. The program had somehow identified compatibilities I never would have recognized on a first date or even a 10th. Ethan wasn't my type. He wasn't charismatic or dynamic in ways that usually attracted me. But his reliability wasn't boring. It was deeply comforting. His analytical mind complemented my creative thinking rather than clashing with it. Our first major fight came in month 4, over something trivial that escalated because we were both stressed about work. I stormed out of the apartment, walking aimlessly through neighborhood streets, wondering if this was the beginning of the end. When I returned, Ethan was sitting on the couch, a peace offering of ice cream on the coffee table. I'm sorry, he said simply. Me too, I replied, joining him. This is the hard part, isn't it? The part where we decide if we work through it or use it as proof this whole thing was crazy from the start. He considered this, in that thoughtful way of his. Every couple fights, Olivia. The difference is, we've been given tools to handle it better. He hesitated. And I want to handle it. I want this to work. It was the first time either of us had explicitly said it, that we wanted this strange arrangement to become something real and lasting. The air between us changed, charged with possibility. That night, I didn't return to my separate bedroom. Instead, we crossed a threshold that made our legal union feel truly like a marriage. In the darkness, the fact that we had once been strangers seemed impossible to believe. At our 6-month review with the program administrators, we were asked to rate our satisfaction on a scale of 1 to 10. 8, Ethan said without hesitation. Only 8, I teased, surprised to feel slightly hurt. He smiled. I'm leaving room for improvement. We have a lifetime ahead of us, after all. The certainty in his voice made my heart skip. A lifetime, I repeated, testing how the words felt. They felt right. 1 year to the day after our bizarre wedding, we stood again in that same venue. This time, surrounded not just by the reluctant guests who'd witnessed our first ceremony, but by friends and family who had come to celebrate our decision to stay married. Ethan took my hands, no longer a stranger but the person who knew me better than anyone. 1 year ago, we took the biggest risk of our lives, he said, voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. We trusted experts and algorithms to find what we couldn't find ourselves. It seemed insane. It was definitely insane, I agreed, making our guests laugh. But sometimes, he continued, the craziest decisions turn out to be the wisest ones. I married a stranger on purpose, and I'd do it again in a heartbeat. As he leaned in to kiss me, a real kiss this time, full of history and promise, I marveled at how the greatest gamble of my life had yielded the surest thing I'd ever known. In bypassing the uncertainty of dating, we'd found a certainty that felt unshakable. We had built our love on purpose, brick by careful brick, and it was stronger for it.
Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. There's a lot more interesting content coming soon.